What would you like our 5-county region to look like? That's the question that Leadership Everyone has been asking participants in over 70 meetings held over the last few years. What were the answers? That's coming up next on WNIN Newsmakers. Leadership Everyone just revealed their results of the regional voice efforts, and here to explain the process and what people's ideas were is Lynn Miller Pease, CEO of Leadership Everyone, and Lawrence Taylor, President of the Board of Directors of Leadership Everyone. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, we're thrilled. We're so excited.
I can tell the energy you guys are bringing is great. First of all, for those who don't know, can we talk about what Leadership Everyone is?
So Leadership Everyone is our local leadership program, and we decided for the name Everyone because we want to be inclusive to all the surrounding counties. And it's not like other leadership programs in which, you have to know somebody to get in. We're very inclusive with our diversity, ranging from job status to economic status, those types of things, because we want everyone to be a part of our leadership program.
Absolutely. Is there anything you want to add?
The only thing I would add too is when we think about Leadership Everyone and we think about voice, we've been doing visioning within the retreats of Leadership Everyone, formerly Leadership Evansville, for decades. So this process is something that has been used and we know it works. So to get to do it in a whole community or region is just like the biggest bonus, I think, in the whole board's existence. I mean, we are so excited.
This is a good segue though. You brought up voice. What is voice and how did it come to be?
Well, voice is a process of having people, all people, little bitty kids, older people, everybody, every different background, look over our history, a glance at like a realistic history, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that, and then they get an opportunity in a group to decide what they want to leave behind from this history and what they want to keep. So it's this really cool process. In addition, we ask people a bunch of, I think they're nosy questions, don't you? I mean, snoopy, nosy questions, because we want to make sure that we hit all the demographics in our region. We want to make sure that we have a lot of people from the county, from the cities, all different kinds of backgrounds. So we do that too. And then we ask them what they care about, what they feel passionate about, and we also give them an opportunity to think about servant leadership, because we don't want people to envision selfishly, but that servant leader concept throughout LE we want to spread with the entire region. So we do servant leadership, carry forward, leave behind, and then we have every one of the people there. And by the way, every single thing is facilitated. So a 5-year-old child and the CEO of a company have the same weight and the same voice. Then they kind of go through this visioning process and they draw visions. Everybody they talk about them. Everybody gets to see what everybody else's vision is, right? And all of that is recorded.
It's very amazing, and the reason being is because one of the characteristics as humans that we all have is we want to be heard. So to be able to have your voice in a room of individuals in which you normally don't get to sit in most cases, because the room is so diverse from the people that we invite, it's almost an experience in which people feel more comfortable to say, okay, I want to have this happen, I don't want to have this happen. And then the cool thing about it as well is that, when we collect all this information and data, what we find out is that it's very similar. People want some of the same things, right? It's not necessarily something selfish for one side of town or one county. It's more so how can we work collectively to bring the community together in a manner that we all want to see it.
Absolutely.
Coming up with this process of collecting demographics has been amazing, because it did a couple of things. So let's say we did 73 meetings, over 2,000 people.
Incredible.
During COVID.
Right.
Still, we look at each other and go, how did we
Thank
do
you
that?
to the volunteers as well.
Thank you to the volunteers, the board, all the people that
yeah.
helped us, but how did we do this? One of the things that I think we did right from the beginning is when you look at that 5-county region, when we think about Henderson, Posey, Gibson, Warwick, and Vanderburgh, sometimes Warwick and Vanderburgh gets a lot of concentration, and maybe we're not listening enough to the outer counties. That's just my opinion. So I felt in order for us, and it's not an I, it was a we felt, it was in order to do this the best possible way, we went to Henderson, Posey, and Gibson first.
That's, yeah.
And so it wasn't a second thought, it was a first thought. And when you look at our demographics, I am so thrilled to see rural show up the way it was supposed to. Then what we compared it to the census, so we can see, like we can really see if we are hitting the census numbers or if we're over or under. And in many situations, we were over.
And I think, that leads into, what a lot of people are talking about, diversity, equity, and inclusion right now. And, it's just not for one subset of population, but it's for everybody's voice to be heard, and to make sure that we have those rural counties input with this information has just made it even more impactful as well, along with the other groups that we have.
Absolutely.
Well, and sometimes groups that need this data, they've never really been able to get, or they haven't had the experience to get the data and the visions from, let's say, low income.
Right.
And here we have it where we show that a whole bunch of the low income people came out to do this. And I really wonder if it's the first time they've really been asked and really been heard. And also, we had a lot of young people. We had people, little bitty kids. We have, and at our reveal, we had all kinds of kids there. And it was just incredibly exciting.
Lawrence, you brought up a good point that it seems like everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants that in their life, but sometimes it could be hard for to get people to actually talk when it comes to these very hard questions. You guys called them intrusive, but they're important questions. Can you talk about the process of collecting those ideas, and were there any worries that maybe you wouldn't collect that kind of data that you did, because it sounds successful?
I think with the volunteers, of course, Lynn and Leadership Everyone staff and the facilitators that were there, they gave that comfortability right in the very beginning. When we sat down in every voice meeting, people just had the opportunity to say, okay, this is how I feel. And there were conversations that were hard during those meetings, but I think having the facilitators knowing how to direct those conversations to make sure people still felt comfortable giving out that information.
I think too, what can happen is there'll be a conversation. Information is gathered, and the participants don't ever see it again. What we did different is after every session, those reports were put out on the internet and emailed to the participants so they could see, this is what was said in your group, this was Vision Group 1, this is what you shared. And then we gave an opportunity for people to let us know if we didn't get it right.
Right.
If we didn't get it right, they could call us. The other thing is, some people reflect, right? And so if you're thinking a few days after this session and you get a great idea, give us a call, we'll add it.
Right.
There wasn't a thing like, you got one and done and you were never going to talk to you again. So now, tonight at the reveal, we were able to invite all these people who participated to come back if they were interested and see the results overall, and then be able to choose if maybe they wanted to participate in making some of the things happen. The other thing is all of our information, all of our data, our visions, everything is available to anybody that wants it. So that means any company, any school, someone out of town, someone in town, any person. There's no cost to it. It will be on our website, it'll be on Grow. It's going to be available. I'm pretty sure ERAP is going to put it up.
Yeah,
a lot
I'm
of
sure.
places where we can have total access to this.
Well, let's talk about some of those overarching themes that you heard from people, because I think that's the most important part, what you guys actually got from people. Are you able to at least to talk about the themes?
Oh yes, absolutely. One of the things that came up in every single question, every single vision, it was diversity, equity, inclusion, and I'm going to add belonging to it. these 2,000 people, they have said we have got to do something to be even more inclusive and to really look towards equity. It's not enough just to invite somebody to the party. We really need people to be part of it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
So we're going to look at that as one of the things that we will be working on, and I know Lawrence is going to be helping us with that. And
Absolutely.
We're excited.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave one of them off because in our next segment we'll talk more about that with Dave. We are also looking at periodically during a session, a voice session, somebody would do an oh wow. I called it an oh wow because everybody in the room would go wow. Wow.
I mean, those moments.
I mean, it's just so cool. And one of them was from a mature lady in the Goosetown neighborhood, Vi, and she talked about needing to check out. She pointed at like a 16-year-old. I need to check that person out of the library to help me with my phone. I can't figure out my iPhone, and I can teach that young person how to grow vegetables in a can. So she was talking about what's called a human library. And we are so excited. The libraries in the region are all excited about this. And this is a way in which people can learn from one another and not just a book. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't even know what that means yet, but that group of people are going to come together and figure out how to make this a reality.
Yeah. And how important is that to have people that are passionate about specific areas?
Extremely important. And you know, along with that DEI effort, you know, I kind of mentioned this in the very beginning, having, you know, the diverse communities come together and supply this information really gives them that comfortability of saying, okay, I see the community going in a direction that I feel comfortable living in, no matter what subset of population that you come from, and especially, you know, with that belonging piece, because everybody wants to belong in some form or capacity, right? Whether you live, you know, out in a rural area, whether you live in city center, whether you live in Henderson or Posey County, wherever you're from, you want to have that sense of belonging. And here in Southern Indiana, the tri-state area, we know that we do a lot of things together. So to be able to have that voice heard of saying, okay, this is what I want, and then also to find out it's very similar to somebody who you thought it was different from, has been amazing as well. You know, a lot of times we had these big groups of people come together in different places and they had some of the same goals, right? How can we bring, you know, green spaces to our communities and those types of goals? How can we bring childcare to our communities and these types of goals? And I think the biggest thing that I found is that we're not so different, right? And when we allow our voices to be heard, we can see that we're not so different. Right. And that belonging and that inclusion comes more naturally than somebody saying you have to be this way.
And I just want to thank you both for being here today, and this is really great news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now Lynn is joined by Dave Goffnett from the Lockmuller Group. Of course, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Well, I wanted to start, before we dive into more information, I wanted to start by asking about your role in the process.
Well, I formerly was on the board, but probably my biggest role is really working to see that the information that we get out of the voice effort goes into action. It's really taking it the next step. I had the opportunity to kind of do the first really dive of great information being fed into the Millennial Plan for 2040, which was, gosh, it was over 10 years ago. Yeah. And looking at the things that have happened when we were able to take the true voice of the people of the Evansville area, frankly, and put that in the hands of local leaders and through our plan, and to see them begin to implement that plan. And I know in your previous conversations you talked about how people feel empowered to give that information. Yes. You can lose them just as easily if there's not action. Action is really the key to people feeling as though not only did you listen, but then you took action on what I said.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, after Evansville Voice, which was the first one we did in 2012 in partnership with Mayor Winicky, we took all that information, and all of a sudden, all these plans were happening. Parks plans, roads plans, Millennial.
Mets plan.
Mets. And so we just took, so Lockmuller is so good to us. I asked Dave, I said, can you take all those plans and kind of stack the map?
Right.
So that we can see what's going over. So Dave and I unbeknownst to the rest of the world, we were seeing, could these, even veteran, everybody, could we somehow combine these efforts so that we could get complete streets and different things out of it? It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It is. The layers fit.
They
In
fit.
other words, if I'm doing a plan for METS, which much of the ridership of METS is really income dependent, they truly need that service. If we hadn't heard their voice, you can't overlay that with the other plans and the actions that are being taken. So that's the real value in this, is the range of voices you're hearing and how you're overlapping that with the different plans and so forth that you're doing and then implementing.
Right.
And because of that kind of effort, and the first time when we started to do regional voice, people knew to ask us. Like it was different. We weren't trying to sell it. People would call us and say, "We know you're not done, but we're doing the READY grant. Can we get your data from the READY grant? We know you're not done." I think the most recent one was a transportation grant. It just kept going. The Promised Neighborhood,
Yes.
that big 30,000 education grant.
The one you're talking about on the transportation front is the Reconnecting Communities
That's
grant that the city is going after. And again, this is all about taking populations that have had almost a generation of having to deal with a situation that divided it, but having heard the voices and coming back to the table and saying, look, we recognize our past transgressions. We want to do something to better a situation from the past. The story for that grant is fantastic. Hoping and praying they are awarded.
That we'll get it.
So,
and we've done the same thing for the riverfront. We can help in a particular area, and it may not have to be one of the topics we actually pick to work on. We can divvy out the information. Anybody that asks, pretty soon with the dashboard, they can just go get it, which will be phenomenal. So we feel like all of this work and time and effort is really benefiting people. We had a visioning session at Bossy High School, just kids. It was not for the teachers, it was not for the parents, it was just the young people. And that's how Aaron Huff set it up. From that information, these young people were tremendously, a lot of visions, a lot of cool stuff. They were really worried about their teachers.
I have to ask what the ages were.
So this is freshman to senior.
Okay.
So Bossy High School, freshman to senior. And they were really worried about that. They were worried about some of the condition of their school. And we decided to go ahead and act on that before we were done. It was like so urgent. So we thought, we can't take on education, it's too big. But we could go to one school as a pilot and see if we connected an LE alumni with the educator, not to tell them how to teach or how to be the school nurse, but just what can we do to help. It has been unbelievable what has come of that. I mean, unbelievable. Schnucks is now providing food for the teachers' classrooms so they're not spending their money. People from Deaconess have supplied the nurse. Wesselman Woods has redone the greenhouse. Sabic found out that the chemistry lab was in trouble. It wasn't functioning. They've completely redone the chemistry lab, the whole lab. It's probably $250,000, $300,000 worth of work that EVSC didn't have to come up with the money, and we got it done right away. People are in there doing financial literacy, like Lawrence, who was just on. And we're going to be doing leadership work with the seniors to help them get prepared. So that's just a touch of it, but just that amount. So we're hoping we can do this with other schools too.
Leadership Everyone doesn't necessarily have a lot of means, but they have a network. And connecting, my wife's a Bossy grad, connecting those because of the desire of the students to see that their teachers don't feel like they're on an island, and to really broaden out that network, it's invaluable.
You keep mentioning these specific areas that projects maybe might be going towards. There's there's 6 areas, maybe 4.
So I've mentioned 3 now.
Let's go over
Let's go to the other 3. One of them is experiences, and this came up in the first round too. People want to experience. It's not just I want a restaurant or
Right.
locally. I want to have an experience, and what we're hoping to is that we will apply that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging to experiences. So we're not just doing typical experiences that maybe the majority of the people would be used to, but we want to make sure that we're hitting all those. Another one, environmental concerns came up, strong and clear. So we have a group of people gathering around that, more with the idea of seeing if they can help different organizations do better in a non-blame and shame way, but how do we help? We're very excited. Now, our big long one, and this is one of the reasons why Dave is here, when we talk about connected trails, connected transportation, it is so needed. It's needed in every area, whether it's quality of life, economic development, education, inclusion. Sometimes the trail means that somebody can work, they can't drive, because they can ride their bicycle. So it's really important. So Dave, here we go again, Dave.
This is big.
This is your thing,
It's big,
baby.
and it
It's your thing.
requires a heavy
Everyone.
lift.
Yeah.
And this will be
And
one.
5 county trails,
I'm
5
so
counties.
totally convinced we'll take a total deep dive into it, because regional connectivity it's big. We talk about connectivity in a spiritual sense. You want people to feel connected, like there's belonging. Now we're talking some literal, true connections via trails. So these are miles long. They're difficult. They cost a lot. They require serious people sitting down at a table, working through serious challenges. But in the end, the benefit is it will so outweigh the cost, but it's going to take people that really put their blood, sweat, and tears into this. And we have organizations. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Evansville Trails Coalition, didn't mention Warwick Trails. I mean, the energy and the commitment of those two groups, but imagine getting them together in a room with multiple other local officials and key players, Indiana Trails Coalition, trying to get them together to figure out how to literally connect regions with miles of trail networks. But it can happen, and it has to. I think of the Ohio River visioning process and the plan that we're doing. You talk about an amazing connection. You're talking from Mount Vernon, Posey County, all the way to Newburgh. There are 3, and if you just hop across the river, we pick up Henderson. So there are 4 of the counties that we're trying to connect just in that effort.
Right.
So,
And that came up over and over again.
I'm
Boat
sure.
taxis, boat ferries, riverfront. We said, hey, let's work with the trails. We called the Trails Coalition people and said, would it help you? Would it help you if we help convene conversation, help maybe connect some dots? Sometimes what happens with great big beautiful ideas, and I like vision, so I love that, we can all talk and we envision, we ideate, and we just sit there and all of us are like drawing pictures. It's nothing, right? What LE is offering and doing is in each one of these categories, there will be dedicated facilitators, dedicated communication people, probably the most important as far as I'm concerned, because I'm not very good at project plans, project people, so that we can keep this moving, right? And it's important to be able to communicate that back, so if something's working, we can do it. Every so often, let's say every 3, 4, 5 months, we'll decide as a group, we're gonna get all these groups together, because experiences are gonna overlap with trails. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
Some of the environmental stuff that's working needs to be part of experiences. We wanna make sure that we've cross-communicated, and I think we need to hear when good things have happened, because some of it takes a while. It just can take a while.
And
I'm doing some of
that-
this now for
the
my
energy,
grandbaby.
That's right. Which we have to. We have to look
do
that
it.
far in advance. But that energy, it can really, if you don't have some successes, soon you just feel like you're spinning and you start to lose that momentum. And we can't have that.
Well, I have to ask, just because this process, took so much effort, and it might be too soon to tell, but it's my understanding that there are already some real results that you're seeing already. And I'm sure there's more to come, right?
Yeah. I think one of the maybe undersung results is when we're working this way through servant leadership and we're connecting with people we've never met before, and a 6-year-old drawn a picture with an 86-year-old man, and they didn't know each other before, and they're holding hands, telling each other what's going on. One's Venezuelan, it's you need to be able to share and have relationships and trust for collaboration to work. Collaboration is a great word. It does not work without that other work. And then when you get to see, I think a lot of times people take good ideas, they go off and do them. What we got to see tonight was a whole bunch of people signing up to do the work themselves.
People take those projects and carry them forward, but they want to believe, those local officials, that that's the desire of the people that they serve, right? And so we find out who, what the feelings are, what the desires are. We deliver that information, and the local officials often participate, but they carry that ball forward and bring things to reality. And again, you see that investment into areas that were previously underinvested, or even sometimes there's disinvestment, and then you see that investment and it just lights a fire.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes people think, oh, people have apathy, they have this, they're not interested. That's not been our experience. The other thing, out of doing 2 of these, 1 in 12 and 1 over the last several years, we're talking about 5,000 people. I can count 3 times that somebody was so crabby and negative we couldn't manage them. You know what I mean? Like the people, when they saw what they were doing, and they would turn and go, I didn't know these other people. I didn't know other people cared so much. It takes that little bit of passion and it sort of sets it on fire in a positive way.
Yes.
Pooh. And then it's all of a sudden there's this amazing glow. And we will never know all the things that came out of Voice. What we're doing a little different this time, and I'm really excited about it, we're gonna have 12 sessions every year. So we're gonna keep adding current information because—
That's very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, there used to be a big bunch of stuff about a downtown stadium. Well, now that the Ford Stadium is there, that doesn't come up in the visions anymore. It's done. So you see what I mean? Yeah. So there's times that we need to find out, and we keep, and that's a whole nother group of people to pour into the engagement. And I think engagement in your community helps with brain drain, turnover, mental health issues. When I'm involved in helping others, I'm not thinking about myself as much, and that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, and as we wrap up, I do want to touch really quick on that dashboard. I know we talked about it in our last segment, but if you can just let people know where they can access those results and where they can check this dashboard out.
Awesome. So they can go to voicecommunity.org, which is our website, and they can get it. It will be also on leadershipeveryone.org. It will be available in the Wellborn Foundation, Grow, and then we'll be putting out a list soon of all the different ways that they can connect.
Dave, Lynn, thank you so much, and thank you for your commitment to all of this as well. I'm sure this was a rigorous process, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks again to all of our guests for joining us to talk about the Leadership Everyone Voice Project, and thank you for watching WNIN Newsmakers.